How does someone do a Hellboy comic without Hellboy? As always, the transcript for this essay and all of my other videos are available on my website, witsendpod.com. Who is Hellboy? He's the son of a Lord of Hell who was summoned to Earth during World War II by the Mad Monk Rasputin. Hellboy has a right hand that serves as the key to the apocalypse or Ragnarok. When he was brought to Earth as a baby, he was taken in by Professor Trevor Broom and the Allies, eventually being raised by and becoming an agent for the BPRD. In 1991, Mignola drew this demonic character for the program book of a Comic-Con. Quote, "I added the Hellboy name at the last minute and it made me laugh. I wasn't trying to create a character, I just wanted to draw a monster." A couple years later, Mignola decided he did want to create an original character in series and drew up a team that would eventually become the BPRD. Quote, "My first idea was more like a traditional superhero team, a sort of occult detective version of DC's Challengers of the Unknown or Marvel's Fantastic Four. The BPRD agents were always supposed to be part of Mignola's universe from his earliest sketches. Hellboy and the BPRD in Mignola's early sketches look different than the final product, but it's fun seeing that progression. Characters like Abe Sabien and Liz Sherman turned out pretty fully formed. Mignola decided to tone down the original Hellboy design and focus his series more on Big Red than a team. And so the world's greatest paranormal investigator was born in the pages of San Diego Comic-Con Comics number 2 from 1993. The other characters still appeared throughout the series, but didn't become the main focus until BPRD. Now, what is BPRD? The BPRD is an organization in writer-artist Mike Mignola's Hellboy universe. It stands for the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, and it does exactly what it sounds like. It's not a secret shadow organization like some Hellboy media depicts it as. There are plenty of stories where small towns in the boonies call up the BPRD to solve some supernatural event. Hellboy, Abe Sapien, and company will show up to solve a case in broad daylight. Also, for this series, I'm going to be talking about the Mignolaverse in the context of the comics, and not the movies, games, and animations. I did do a quick essay on the main Hellboy series. Can someone start reading BPRD without reading Hellboy? Yes. Realistically, anyone can read any comic at any point and make things up as they go along. It might be best to read at least the first 2 Hellboy omnibus books where he ends up leaving the BPRD. BPRD does a solid job summarizing the story quickly and giving each character their time to shine. Certain character introductions from the main series are reintroduced in flashbacks. Mignola's comics aren't really the kind where someone would have to read 70 years of history to understand the story. A lot of the main Hellboy series is a bunch of short stories with the occasional big cosmic supernatural story to tie everything together. The Hellboy spin-offs are pretty accessible on their own. It feels rewarding seeing how everything fits together when read as a whole. I won't be summarizing every short story and want to focus on the bigger arcs, but BPRD does kick off with Hellboy's departure from the Bureau at the end of Conqueror Worm in 2001. There's a point where he travels around Africa and spends over 2 years trapped in the ocean. In short, Hellboy going on vacation ends up with his life getting even weirder. In 2002, the BPRD series launched with a 3-issue miniseries called Hollow Earth. Like Hellboy, BPRD doesn't have actual issue numbers. It's made up of short stories, longer arcs, and one-shots, and each arc starts off at issue 1. Hollow Earth is co-written by Mignola, Christopher Golden, and Thomas Nagowski, with pencils by Ryan Sook. These days, Sook's style is cleaner and has more of that DC Comics house style look to it. In this arc, Sook is channeling Mignola, and this becomes more apparent with inks by Sook and Curtis P. Arnold. The heavy shadows, jagged and blocky anatomy, and small heads. Here's a quick breakdown of each of the BPRD characters so far. Number 1, Dr. Tom Manning, director of the BPRD. Also, kind of the reason Hellboy quit because he decided to plant a bomb in Roger the Homunculus. And who would do that? Roger's like the best character. Number 2, Dr. Kate Corrigan. A normal human professor, author, and expert in folklore and the occult, turned BPRD field director and one of Hellboy's closest allies. She was the last person he spoke to before he quit the Bureau. Number 3, Abe Sapien. was found by the Bureau underground in a water tank in the 70s on the day Abe Lincoln died. His story gets a lot more complicated, so I'll save that for another time. Number 4, Liz Sherman. She can control fire, and the first arc is mostly centered around her embracing her powers. She's the reason Number 5, Roger the Homunculus, is alive in Wake the Devil. Liz transfers her powers to Roger, which brings him to life, but also almost kills her. In that story, Mignola describes a homunculus as a medieval test tube baby. Roger is just trying his best to learn to be human. Number 6, a new character named Johann Kraus is introduced for this series. He's a German medium whose body was destroyed, but he lives on in a bodysuit. One of the BPRD villains refers to Kraus as a talking bag. He can communicate with spirits and possess others. Kraus was part of Mignola's original BPRD sketch. He's the one who looks like one of David Bowie's personas. Hollow Earth deals with Liz Sherman accepting her powers and learning to control them, which goes all the way back to her first meeting with Roger. Roger basically has to get used to Hellboy, his older brother, not being around, and emo middle brother Abe is questioning why he stays at all. BPRD newborn Johann is happy to be there and very quickly becomes a valuable member of the team. Treat them like people is a line Corrigan tells Manning in the first issue. This is kind of the thesis for the series. Hellboy focuses on the big supernatural elements in the Mignolaverse. BPRD makes these characters and themes more down to earth. This run is about getting to know the BPRD as people, not monsters. There's a feeling of oppression, like they know they're disposable. The weight of Hellboy's absence is felt early on. He was the first of them, the glue that kept them together. Without him, they don't feel motivated to stay with the BPRD. Red's personality doesn't always get to shine in his own stories. Who he is and how he impacts everyone is felt with how characters talk about him in BPRD. Every time there's a new Bureau member like Abe Sabien, Liz Sherman, or Roger the Homunculus, Red took it upon himself to take them under his wing. He made sure they didn't live their lives being poked and prodded by Bureau scientists. There's a great flashback scene in BPRD Hollow Earth number 2 where Hellboy breaks Abe Sapien out of a glass tube while he's being experimented on and offers to buy him a ham sandwich. Liz and Roger also recount their first meetings with Big Red for Johann, who serves as the new reader entry point for the series. Instead of going their separate ways during Hollow Earth, the team decides to stay together. One of the strengths BPRD has over the main title is how it takes time to focus on each side character from Hellboy's main story. The spin-off is actually longer than the main series and has more cohesion. It allows some of Mignola's unused ideas to come to life, even if it isn't part of Hellboy's main arc. Between Hollow Earth and Plague of Frogs, there are a bunch of short stories and one-shots by various creators focusing on Liz, Abe, Roger, and Johann. Plague of Frogs is the first really big arc of BPRD, which ties the story so far together. This 5-issue arc is written by Mignola with art by Guy Davis. Davis can be considered the main BPRD artist. There are 500-page spans where he draws consecutive arcs. Mignola handpicks other writers and artists who bring a fresh take to the world with their styles. Mignola seems to let artists draw in their own styles and doesn't expect them to use his style unless they want to. This plague was kicked off in the very first Hellboy story. BPRD shows that no matter how hard Hellboy and the Bureau try, the end of the world wants to happen. A cult trying to bring about Ragnarok starts using normal people to help Sadhu Hem from Seeds of Destruction to bring about the end times. Sadhu Hem is a fungus creature that acts as a bridge between our world and Ogdru Jahad, a dragon with 7 heads, the main antagonists of this series. The team is sent to the fictional city of Crab Point in the real state of Michigan, where their helicopter crashes and they get split up. Each agent realizes that the plague is worse than they imagined. The entire town, including children, have been infected by Sadhu Hem's frog plague. Mignola and Davis mix fungus body horror with Elephant Man imagery to create the second coming of Sadhu Hem, who can turn humans into frog people. This arc shows that Rasputin wasn't the only believer in Ragnarok. Each member is taken out of commission pretty ruthlessly. Kate fights against zombies alone, Johann's bodysuit is ripped apart by frogs, a girl who turns into a monster hangs Roger by a chain. In Wake the Devil, Abe runs into the spirit of Rasputin who he killed in Seed of Destruction. Rasputin's spirit warns Sapien of his death. Quote, You will die as I died, and the hand on the spear shaft will belong to another, but the heart that drives them will be mine. Rasputin's prophecy of Abe's death from Wake the Devil comes true, where the cult leader impales him through the chest with a spear. The Mad Monk kind of gets revenge on Abe from beyond the grave. This is a constant theme that Mignola plants seeds that grow years later, where Devil released in 1996 and Frogs number 4 came out in 2004. While Liz saves Kate, Johann finds a dead dog's body to possess so his spirit form doesn't fade away. Johann is able to save Abe from the other side, but not before Abe learns that he might have once been a human being from the 1800s. I did say that his story was going to get a lot more complicated. There's a scene in this arc that covers how everyone has an origin story, but Abe Sabien. So this arc starts the journey of looking into his origins. Liz saves the day in this story by taking out Sadhu Hem by burning him, his frogs, and the zombies. The cult leader ends up walking into the flames on his own after a conversation with Abe. BPRD fills in the gaps from Hellboy, showing that the Bureau is dealing with signs of Ragnarok around the world too. This arc feels like a new beginning, like BPRD finally found its direction. It also hints that Abe Sabien isn't who he thought he was, and that he'll have a bigger role to play in the future. As always, my transcripts and all of my essays are available on my website, witsandpod.com. If it's not on there, it's not me. I did a quick Hellboy essay that dives into Big Red's story as well. The next BPRD essay will cover a key collaborator joining the book. Share these essays around. Thanks for watching. Chaos ensues.